happen? I'm Hanisha Lalwani. Welcome to my show. My guest today is Agni Skafidas. Agni is currently the people director for two German companies by Tinsa, a Spanish real estate consulting firm. Agni has over 20 years of experience in general and specialized HR roles in the Middle East, the UK, the US, and Europe. Working for brands such as Delivery Hero, Olam Group, Emirates and Rockwell Collins, Agni has led high-performing teams across corporates, consulting firms, and startups. Agni is also an accredited executive coach, and she's been a part-time lecturer at multiple universities in Germany and the UAE. What I absolutely love about Agni is her holistic, sustainable, and no-nonsense approach to HR. Agni, welcome to my show.
Thank you so much, Anisha, for seeing you today.
I remember, Agni, that when we had first been introduced back in Dubai, this was professionally, I remember your name stuck with me. In Hinduism, Agni is the god of fire. I want to start our conversation by understanding, what does your name symbolize for you?
So it's actually funny that you say that. When I first went to India, I was picked up as Mr. Agni because people had a different association with it. Whereas my parents, they've never been to India. They named me after my grandmother, whose name was Agnes.
Oh, wow.
So out here, people are going like, is that your real name? I'm going like, yes, it is my real name. And I now use the god of fire as something that I then also promote, because sometimes the fire does come out. There are moments when, and it matches my star sign. So I use that as a conversation starter, because a name is always the first thing that people either hear from you, or in those days when you gave out the business card, here's the name, people would then go like, oh, where are you from? What does your name mean? So for me, it's really making use of, is this a conversation starter? Let's see where it takes us.
Yeah, and I kind of have the same experience. Hanisha, oh, that's the name we've never heard before. How do you spell it? And like 5 minutes just go on clarifying the spelling of the name and what does it mean. So it's a real icebreaker, and I think it has this characteristic of stickiness. So people remember you, and I love your name, and I love that you said that the fire in you shows from time to time. We all need that fire.
It does come out.
So I want to take you back to your very first job. You were an HR generalist right after you finished your education. Tell me about how you got that first job and what made you so sure about being in HR.
When I finished, I did my undergrad in Germany and in Ireland, and then I went back to Ireland for my postgrad. And I remember all my Irish friends, they were so relaxed about it. Like, it was April and they still didn't have a job. And I was going like, we need to apply for a job. And in Ireland, it is like, you wait. You don't have like a 3 months notice period, or at least in those days for those roles you didn't. So recruitment was at a much faster speed when you needed it, maybe a month in advance, maybe 2 months in advance. And I was sitting there thinking like, oh my God, my German brain can't function like that. You need to be prepared, because you need to know what's happening after final exams, after you've submitted your thesis.
Correct. Yeah.
And so on that, I decided I'm going to reach out, and I'm going outside of Ireland again. So I applied for a job in Heidelberg, Germany, that was then modified for me to make it work. And I thought, this is amazing. This is a place that's an EMEA headquarters, so Europe, Middle East, and Africa. It was English speaking. It was really a great place. And I mean, the company was a great place to work. Company for, I don't know how many years. We were the M&M company, and we did so much. But the thought of going into HR was only after I did an internship for about 8 months, 9 months. during my final year for undergrad. And that's where I thought, this is pretty cool. I'm still in loose contact with the person who hired me at the time, and he really
Wow.
showed me how much HR can do, because it impacts every part of the business.
Correct.
And for me, that was just something, because my university dream and my dream career was crushed during uni times. And I thought, okay, what else? And Herr Kranz, Mr. Kranz, who gave me that
Mm.
opportunity for the internship, he really showed me what is all out there. So when I then finished my undergrad, or was about to finish undergrad, and decided to go for postgrad, I already knew that I needed to have more business background, that I needed to go into that stream. And then I also decided, okay, I would love to work in HR,
Mm.
because it just has this impact on people from every aspect. And that's what fascinated me, and still does fascinate me, because I think you can do a lot more with HR than just, I'm good with people.
Yeah,
I love to
absolutely.
communicate, which
Mm.
I unfortunately still hear today, of what people think HR is all about. And let me
Oh
tell
my
you,
God. Yeah. As a marketer, I can understand that perception issue with the function. We face the same from time to time as well. Um,
Mhm.
but it's lovely to hear that right off the bat, your first job, you had a role model at work
Yeah.
who really showed you the impact of your function. It's amazing because you really then become surer about the path that you have taken. Um, and then since your first job, now you've got 20 years of work experience as an HR professional. Have you taken a planned approach to your career, or have you just simply gone with the flow, exploring new opportunities if and when they come along the way? I'm very curious to hear your answer.
I'm laughing, Hanisha, as you can see at that question, because I remember very clearly sitting in the office of my mentor at the time, and he asked me, Agni, who do you think drives your career here? You or the company? And I thought,
Hmm.
well, clearly it's me, because we had these leaflets. In those days, they were still printed, and it said, your career, your drive. So I thought, it's me. And he said, like, no, we plan your career for you. We had a very
Oh,
extensive, yeah, and I was quite surprised when he said this. We had a succession plan in place, and you had people who would raise their hand and say, oh, I would like to explore that area, or I would like to
right.
explore that area. So it was managed, giving you the impression that you could still drive it yourself. And I do believe that there
Hmm.
is that self-drive in there, because if you didn't say, I want this, people
Yeah.
wouldn't support you in doing that.
No.
Like, you weren't pushed into a certain direction.
Hmm.
At the same time, I don't think that I managed anything in my career. Like, it all came into place. And in hindsight, it probably all made sense. But when I looked for new career opportunities, they weren't like necessarily, oh, in 3 years, I want to be at that level, or in three
Right.
years, I want to know all about this topic. I never planned anything of that. I may have planned that, oh, I'd like to be abroad, or I'd like to be
Hmm.
in that industry, or I have a preference for that industry. So let's target companies in that industry. But otherwise, it was pretty much a happy go lucky approach.
Well, that sounds wonderful. Like it just kind of I think it's important for young HR professionals and professionals in general to hear that from someone like you to alleviate a bit of that pressure as well, that
Yeah.
they've got to have everything in control, especially when it comes to their career. And I think, like you, I have kind of had those milestones in my mind
Hmm.
and a very sort of loose, tentative timeline so that at least I'm working towards it. But I'm not going to hold myself to it so long as I know that I've tried my best. Um,
That's really good to not hold yourself to it, because I've worked in environments recently where I've seen people under 30 having this desire, oh, I'm going to be 30 in 2 years, in a year, in 3 years, I need to have reached that level, or I need to have that title, or I need to have that income by that time. And I'm going like, fine, I'm older now and I see it more relaxed, but what's the rush?
Yeah,
Why do we put ourselves down to this level? Oh, I'm going to be 30 and I need to have it done by then, or by
exactly.
35, I need to have the house, the car, the children, and whatever else is flavor of that year.
Correct.
It's like you have maybe 35, 40 years, 45 years that you'll be working. Why do you need to rush it? And that's what really surprises me. But I also see the need for certain individuals from themselves, like their inner selves, to prove it to, again, society, their boss, their
Yeah.
parents, their friends. And I just wished they would take it easy and have fun along the way.
Yeah, there's a lot of, I think, also speaking personally, there's that cultural baggage, right?
Mhm.
We're such go-getters. We have operated in such demanding environments. There's societal pressure, and I think it was in my late 20s as well where I was like, look, this is going to be a 40-year long career at least. So look at it as that, not 5 years, 10 years. You've got a long way to go. And that helped me really reduce the stress and pressure I put
Mhm.
on myself.
Good.
So, yeah, I think a lot of people listening to this episode should take this away from our conversation. When Agni, one looks at your profile, there's a lot of dynamism, a lot of vibrancy.
Thank you.
You've studied in Germany and Ireland, you worked in Europe, UK, the US, and the Middle East. Your work in HR spans across multiple industries. You're a coach and you have also been a university lecturer. Tell me, what has made you pursue this variation across geography, industries, and has all of this variety over the past 20 years in particular made you a better HR leader?
I probably never set out to go the route that I've taken. So it's easier to speak in hindsight than looking forward for me for this very question. However, what I do like is variety. I like to throw the balls up in the air and keep them going. I do at the same time like to have my peace and quiet. So it's
Yeah.
not like I have to be a busy bee all the time, but
Mm,
the variety, and I find it very stimulating that if you are working in, for example, HR, you approach things, or I at least approach things in a very different manner than if I were, for example, at university level. And
mm,
when you're teaching, you need to keep the academic aspects very much so in mind. Combining those, you get so many different perspectives because every company is different, even in the same industry. Yeah, there are certain trends,
mm,
there are certain similarities. At the same time, we're all longing for, okay, what makes us unique? What's different? What's innovative? Or what's agile? Um, and we have all these buzzwords, but we want to be different from everyone else. While at the end of the day, at least in HR, there's so many programs, initiatives that you can run across industries,
mm,
within the same industry. Put your own flavor to it.
yeah.
Did going into the different areas make me a better HR person? I don't necessarily want to use that, but maybe a
Mm,
more rounded person, because I do see it from different perspectives. I've
mm,
seen what works maybe in one industry, doesn't necessarily work in the same industry, or I've seen how we adjust certain programs. And just having that 360 view is probably bad because I don't have eyes at my back. But to really keep that open mind, and I think it's also that challenge, to constantly learn, okay, what makes us different, that
mm,
it has given me as a present every time I went from one company to another, from one industry to another, or to switch my thinking when I'm standing in front of a group of students who have their own views and who are also
yeah.
challenging me and saying like, yeah, but this doesn't work in my company. To then go like, okay, why doesn't it work in your company? What's so different about this? in your company and to then explore. I think it's that mindset that you open up, that you're more inquisitory, that you're more holistic, overarching when you approach certain matters.
I like how you've talked about the impact of your move, different geographies, industries, not just as a professional, but as a person as well, because I myself connect with that so much. And I think that's the other thing that you and me have in common is our thirst for variety. It just keeps things fresh and keeps us going. I think variety is really important. Um, but has it been easy or difficult for you to get these international opportunities and to switch between industries as an HR professional? Because personally, it hasn't been easy for
Mhm.
me. And I find that it's a lot tougher for marketers to get that opportunity to switch between industries, even though the basics, the principles are the same.
And there's a certain similarity within HR that sometimes people say, oh, I want somebody who has worked in this industry. I remember
Hmm.
that very clearly when I worked in medical devices in
Yeah.
Dubai, that companies said, oh, we want somebody who's already from this industry, or maybe pharmaceutical, but not from production, or something very different. You have that as well. I at the same time say you have these two types of people. You have the ones who stay in the industry
Hmm.
their entire life. You have the others who switch industries, and both of them have advantages and disadvantages.
Hmm.
Was it always easy to find that next opportunity? No. One challenge that I've definitely come across is, oh, you have such an international background. Would you be happy in a national role? And so sometimes when I personally applied for roles, the person on the other side of the table could already sense certain things that I may knew in the back of my mind, but that I may not have been able to admit to myself.
Hmm.
But then also where they could see, no, this is a too small or a
Yeah.
too big role. So no matter how long I've been in my career, there have always been those moments. Oh, you're not qualified enough, or you're overqualified. So
Right.
if anybody who is starting out now and is hearing this, don't let that stop you, because even I now have this challenge. It's
Hmm.
really coming down to finding the company that appreciates what you bring along. And that these days, I think, is a little bit more challenging because with the internet, with flexibility, especially since COVID, you can move. You're not a tree. You can move, you can go
Hmm.
somewhere. Sure, for certain people, it's more difficult if they have family, if they have aging parents, if
Yeah.
they maybe not speak the language. And I've
Hmm.
come across that multiple times that I needed to speak the company and country language. And even for international roads, why do I need to speak Dutch?
Hmm.
So that was always a challenge. But I would say if you want to go into a certain industry, if you want to go abroad, try it and don't just give up because somebody sent you a rejection.
Yeah.
I've had moments when I've applied for hundreds of jobs in my search, and depending on how the job market is, you'll see it will be easier or it will be
Hmm.
more challenging. But that's also
Correct.
where personal networks,
Yeah.
personal connections come in handy, because they may have a different perspective. They may know somebody who knows somebody and can give a
Hmm.
little bit of a tip or a pointer as to what to adjust. And I wouldn't be discouraged from that. But nowadays, I know what is important for me now. I know what my values are, and
Hmm.
I pursue my new opportunities according to that. And then if it's time to change, it's again re-evaluating, what do I want? Do I want to have a role in this country, in this city?
Right.
Do I want to have a national focus? Do I want to have an international focus? How much
Yeah.
am I willing to have a global focus? Because hey, we work in different time zones. Am I willing to get up
Exactly.
and be at work by 7 a.m. and
Hmm.
continue working until probably 9 p.m. just to cover the entire from Asia to
Hmm.
the Americas? And that also makes it a little bit more challenging. If you know what you want, you need to find that employer that values that is able to handle your self-awareness, your needs, and also your desires. And that for me was probably also a big learning curve over the years.
And I think everything that you said about knowing what you want and what you don't want from your career, that comes with experience, that
Yeah.
comes with trying different things, making mistakes, or having successes. So, yes, I think as you get deeper into your career, if not, I, for example, know more about what I don't want
Mhm.
sometimes than what I want.
And that's a really good starting point.
Yeah,
Because sometimes it may be the elimination process that gets you
correct.
to what do I really want? Maybe it doesn't stick out that clearly what you want. Maybe you look at those bad experiences that you had, those bad bosses, those bad colleagues, and I'm going to call them bad. And we all had them. And if you hadn't, you're super lucky.
Yeah,
Um, but to eliminate, what do I no longer want to put up with, which in return says this is what I want, this is what I need.
agreed completely. And I think this segues into my next question quite seamlessly. We've all had challenges in our careers, lots of ups and downs. Could you share with me maybe a very, very challenging phase in your career that you experienced? And how did you keep your head above the water? How did you navigate that
Yeah,
time?
I had one employer where I did not get on with my boss. I did not get
Mm,
on with him at all. We were on so different planets. I mean, he was, I would say, up with the fairies at times because he was talking in such lofty terms where I thought, okay, break that down for me. What do you
mm,
need? What do you want? And how am I supposed to do that? Because I could not follow whatever he said. Plus, for me, it changed on a frequent basis. That if I worked on something going to the right side, then in the afternoon it was, oh, no, no, we need to go to the left side. Or,
oh boy.
I mean, there were such mood swings where I just thought, I can't do this. So for me,
Mm,
that was extremely frustrating, as you can already tell, to not, and because we were on such different spectrums. I experimented a lot outside of work. So I started, I always had a garden, so a vegetable garden. I redid that again, growing vegetables on the balcony. And with the climate, it was sometimes a little bit more challenging to grow certain elements.
mm,
I explored different hobbies, different courses that I took just to just to keep my mind
yeah.
exploring different areas and then seeing,
Mm,
okay, can I still do something new? Can I still learn something new? Because I thought, well, maybe I'm too fixated in how I do things.
mm,
But then I realized, like, no, I get on with other people in the company. It's just a personality clash. And by
yes.
focusing my energy and not working crazy hours, I decided, okay, I need to work, I need to pay my bills.
Yeah.
I then also focus on me outside of work and explore what brings me joy there. What is
Mm,
there that I have never done before? And that helped me, but I also made the decision to very actively look for another job and to get out of
right.
that environment because I knew he was never going to leave.
Mm,
And I could not see myself. I mean, there were no other jobs within that company, within HR, that I was qualified for. So I said, you know what? It's not working out. I'm taking my matters into my own hands, and I'm just gonna take off.
wow. No, very brave of you to have taken those steps. And I think something that I'm taking from this is when we are in challenging circumstances, we tend to question ourselves. Is it us? Is it something we did? Is it our personality? But I think it's really important in these really, really difficult times to have that clarity, really question, why is this happening? Why am I going through this challenge? Is it me? Or is it an external reason, and not always is it a you problem. um, there are so many factors that can make that situation for you so challenging. And I love that you said that you really sense checked it for yourself and then took the actions you needed to take to make that situation better for you or to change that situation.
And that's so true what you've just said there, that anybody who's listening or anybody who's ever in a difficult situation, yes, do check in with yourself, question yourself, challenge yourself. Is it
Correct.
you? But then also recognize that no, it may not be you. I mean, there may be moments when it is you, but
Yeah.
when you
Yeah.
verify that it's not you, it's the situation, recognize it, and then decide what you want to do. Are you going to put up with that? Okay. Are you going to do something about it? Okay. Whatever you choose, don't moan, make a decision. You can always change the decision, but do something.
Mm, yeah, and often it's that action of doing something that helps you navigate or see the end of the day and sleep more peacefully at night. Um, I want to bring up my next question, and this is perhaps the best part about your LinkedIn bio, which says that
Okay.
you are a no nonsense HR person. Like I love that. I love that. So could you elaborate a bit on that
Oh,
line?
oh, I can tell stories that I will not share here. I I'm still thinking of writing a book one day with
Mm.
some of the things that I've seen, and I'm sure that a lot of my HR colleagues have seen similar things, or maybe even better stories that are just what on earth. What I mean by no nonsense, I sometimes, and I still have it, refer to a handbook that I received, a policy handbook that's this thick, and everything that ever happened would be put in there. And if somebody breaches a policy, then we would write a new policy for this one particular person so that nobody else of the hundreds of people that we had, and there was a large organization, would ever get into that situation of breaching this policy again. So instead of
Wow.
looking into, I mean, it was job security, because you can never underestimate um, human thinking, that let's write another policy because we can control people's thinking like this. And it's like, no, that doesn't make any sense
Yeah.
whatsoever. We're producing bureaucracy for the sake
Mm,
of bureaucracy. While not every company has a handbook that's this thick, I have worked in some organizations where we have processes in place. And let's be honest, I'm German. I like my processes as well. I do cross the road when there's a red light, so I do admit that. Not always, though. But you have to be sensible. Does it make sense to put it in writing?
mm,
Can I not just assume? And then I already hear some people in my mind saying like, no, you can't assume.
mm,
Um, to be pragmatic about it, like, does everything need to be written down? I do believe basics need to be written down. Certain things from a regulatory compliance perspective, they must be written down.
yeah.
But do we need to control every single minute of how
Mm,
employees work? Um, I would love to assume that a manager doesn't say when an employee is sick, oh, well, next time I get a sick leave certificate from you, you can just pack your bags and go. Those kind of things. At the same time, I know these things happen. And that's where we
mm,
need to be
wow.
pragmatic, or I'd like to be pragmatic about it. Okay, hey, let's have a chat. Let's look into what you've just said. Huge opportunities there, but also don't make it more complicated than it is. If
Mm,
somebody is asking for, again, a simple thing, a day off for work, do I need to apply a month in advance with three different email addresses that everybody is aware of it, communicated via the internal Slack channel or whatever
yeah.
communication channel there is, to put it in your calendar as a leave of absence and make it a 3 hour long activity? Or can I just do a click of a button and done? Um, that's, I think, where we need to simplify HR in order to get to what really matters to people, and to look into how can I make coming to work an experience for them from an environmental perspective, from a content perspective, from a development perspective. And also you have then the recognition, how do I reward somebody? Do I need to make that into a super complex thing, or do we not have, and depending on the industry, I mean, there's so many things that work relatively easy, but the amount of paperwork that I've seen, especially in one part of the world where I just felt, oh my God, we kill ourselves with this. This
Yeah.
is absolutely not required that we have printed out wet ink signature in blue plus 8 signatures to give somebody a 3% pay rise, if that equivalates to $50 a year. You know, those kind of things are just ignore it. Just do
And
it.
would you say that your positioning, if I may say so, as a no nonsense HR person, is that something that sets you apart? Or have you found in your experience that it's now not the exception, but more of a norm?
What I have witnessed in the last few years in particular is something that's for me quite sad, because I would like to think that HR, you see certain people nowadays call themselves the people team,
People.
that the focus should have shifted, that in my profession, people would go back from this is the process and follow the process to the T, and not think about, well, what's the impact of that? I've seen, unfortunately, capabilities that are still not at a level where I would expect them. And then it's the question, okay, is that, like the question you asked me earlier, is that because the company didn't develop them? Is it because the individual hasn't taken anything in? Is it because of the environment that they are working in, that it is more personnel like? So we're going back to the 80s, not
Yeah.
even HR terms. And that I found very surprising, that I see still way too many HR teams that are not at that level where they should be. And just because you change your title to I'm an HR business partner, I'm a people partner, it doesn't make you a people partner. When you find good ones, I can name quite a few that are absolutely amazing individuals, who see the profession as something meaningful, where you add value, where you're not just a cost center.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I also still see a lot of individuals that could develop themselves further. And that's where maybe, and I'm pointing at the younger generation now, being what you said in the introduction, a little bit older, for them to also push it, to challenge it, to really say we need to have a certain quality level. And I think that's where HR sometimes still falls short. And I just wish there were more of the really good ones out there. I think you have it in other sections more pronounced.
I
So, for
see.
example, to find a good salesperson, I could name you a lot more. Same with finance. And maybe it's the same in marketing, that you say there are really good, talented individuals out there and they are driving it.
Thank you for that honesty. I really appreciate it. And it's HR is it's a very demanding function. It's by no means easy, right? Like, and especially when we are trying to navigate very challenging economic times. I mean, Agni, in your career as an HR leader, you've had to have had multiple times be the bearer of bad news to employees, especially during redundancies and restructures. How do you navigate those difficult conversations?
It makes it easier when you're in a company that appreciates their employees and they know that, yes, it sucks, but we're trying to do everything to make it as smooth and as, if you can even call it, positive for the employee. I do
Right.
think there is a difference in how you say goodbye to somebody.
Wow.
Just because somebody is being terminated, it doesn't mean that their life ends. Their income will definitely be reduced, maybe just temporarily because they are already looking for a new job, or because they are connected or have the right skills that are in demand at the time. The how you let somebody go matters so much. And I've worked in some companies where there was so much room for improvement. I remember one client that I had in Dubai, even during COVID, and they weren't doing very well, but they said, no, look, we need to let these people go, but we can't just let them go with tomorrow is your last day. We need to give them something in addition. And for me, that was such an amazing experience, even as an outsider, working with them, looking into how do we make that work, because they appreciated the employees. They said it's not their fault.
Yeah.
And they just said, we need to help them. Maybe we want to rehire them if they want to come back. That we need to make it as possible or as positive as possible
Right.
for them. And that's where, again, it's going back to who are you? What kind of professional do you want to be? What kind of HR do you want to be, that you work in those organizations that are aligned with your values? There may be some people listening now that say, oh, I have no issue terminating people and I don't care how. I've terminated people. Do I like it? No. Do I understand it's a necessary thing? In most cases, yes. Can they be avoided? In some cases also, yes. How you communicate that
I see.
makes the difference for me. There are so many things, and people can reach out if they want to know how to. Um, I think as a company overall, not just HR, but as a company, we can always do better when we're letting people go and when we're giving those sometimes challenging messages. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that the how is more important as well. Like we need to focus on how we're delivering the message, even though it may not be what the other person wants to hear. Um, Talking about the difficult role of HR. I mean, HR's role is so expansive and it's ever evolving, especially since the pandemic. The list of priorities goes on and on. You have to align HR with business objectives. You have to drive employee engagement and productivity. You have to leverage new HR technology, manage compliance and risk, etc., etc. What is it that keeps you up at night? And like some professionals, is AI one of those things?
So funny that you say that, because 2 nights ago I was actually awake for 2 hours and I was thinking, like, what is keeping me up? What is going through my mind? And there was nothing, and I
Oh.
couldn't figure out what. And normally I sleep through, so it was very,
Hmm.
very frustrating. For me, it's that aspect of performance, motivation, engagement. That is at the moment really how do you make it meaningful for people to come to work, and coming to
Hmm.
work not just in an office. I very often work, like I said, here. How do you get them engaged? How do you make sure that they not only deliver, but they also take something back for themselves? Every time you work, you learn something. How do we make sure as an employer that we give something back? Because it's a two-way street. Yes, you
Correct.
get paid for your services at the end of the month, but you also provide your services. So that is probably the biggest question for me. It's funny that you bring up AI, because being back in Germany, Germany is this little misunderstood place at times when it comes to data security. It feels that how do we use it without giving up intellectual property?
Hmm.
Proprietary information, safeguarding that. We obviously have GDPR requirements. How do we make sure that this is not in contradiction, but that we use AI in an efficient, in an effective manner? I do see so many webinar invitations for HR and AI.
Hmm.
I think it will be a good tool, though I think for a lot of companies, it may be how do we automate basic processes first, get them out, look at AI maybe to get inspiration,
Mm.
If you type in ChatGPT and engagement plans, I mean, there's some ideas that everybody knows. There are always
Yeah.
some ideas that, could this work? To just
Right.
think about it. It's like a stimulator, a
Interesting.
brain
Okay.
teaser of
Mm.
could it work, could it not work? I also see the differences in industries, having changed industries in the last few years, that
Mm.
AI is going to be a definite in certain ones, and in the others, it will then be seen, are we going to be left behind? I mean, think of those HR teams that are still using Excel. They,
Yeah.
they call them Excel databases. It's an Excel sheet to
Mm.
keep their HR records. And I'm going like, well, we need to move on. We need to look at automation
Mm.
to really free up time for something else. And I honestly think that AI can be beneficial if we also know how to navigate it.
And I mean, I'm trying to see how the two connect, right? You mentioned the thing that you think about most on your job is about how do you keep the workforce engaged.
Mhm.
And then I'm trying to think about where does AI come into helping you with that problem or challenge? Do you have any initial thoughts?
At the moment, not really. At the moment, and this is also where AI and I need to come closer together.
I love that.
Because the way I use it right now is maybe not, I mean, it's definitely not utilizing it to its fullest by no means. I'm using it as a conversation starter to see, okay, what is all out there if I don't want to do a 15-hour Google search.
Yes.
But
Okay.
then I also see that, oh, I need to verify certain things that it just spits out.
Mm. And
Um,
like you said, you've tried using it to give you certain ideas of engagement
yeah.
plans, perhaps. Yeah. Okay. So you're experimenting at this point.
Oh, absolutely, because I don't know what I don't know about it.
Yeah.
I know certain aspects, and maybe it's more of media that is telling me about it. But I definitely know that I need to become more familiar with it and integrate it more
Hmm.
to keep it for the future, because it's not going to go away.
No, no. And I think that's the other thing that you and me have in common. AI and I have to really become friends. And to my final question now, you're a very much a roll up your sleeves, like we said, no nonsense HR leader. You love networking. You love a good challenge. You really relocated multiple times. You're also honing your woodworking craft, which is very
Mhm.
interesting. Agni, what would you say makes you so adept at making things happen?
Um, as I'm looking around here and I'm preparing for a move again,
Again.
again. Um, I don't know what makes me adaptable. It's on the one hand side the mindset that this is not just it. There are certain things that I have taken with me, and I packed a box last night of memorabilia that has been passed down from my grandmother to me, and there's a certain consistency there. There's also a certain movement in there with those with learning different skills, just to keep moving. And movement not necessarily in the physical sense, but also in the mental sense.
Hmm.
With those courses, the skills that I've acquired over the years, it's not standing still. And what's
Wow.
the proverb? If you stand still, you rust, or something like that. You do need that movement. You I find it also beneficial to be around different people from different
Hmm.
backgrounds, different generations, different perspectives, because then they do challenge me. They challenge my thinking, and I can think, um, reflect, review, and analyze what is it that I'm doing? Is that necessarily the right one? And maybe at the time it is. Maybe in hindsight, I say, that wasn't the best move.
Yeah.
But ta-da, it was done, or it is done. But to be open, to explore, that's what I always say in HR. There's nothing urgent in HR. There is nothing that we can't fix. We are not an ER doctor. We are not in an ambulance situation. Everything that we do from a professional basis, we can adjust. Everything from a personal perspective, I can also adjust. It may sometimes mean heartbreak, tears, what have you.
Yeah.
Sleepless nights maybe as well. But we're alive, so we can still do something.
Wow. Okay. This is just such a brilliant way to end the podcast. And it's been, I mean, what you said about how you make things happen, that one word, movement, it means so many things and it makes so much sense. Move, make things happen. Don't be still, and not just in the physical sense, but always keep learning, keep your mind open, and keep doing. Agni, thank you so much for this interview, and I really enjoyed our conversation. I enjoy all of our conversations, but I'm going to be a bit biased towards this conversation for my podcast. Thank you for joining me today.
Thank you so very much, Hanisha. Thank you.
And that's today's show. If you like this conversation, please give me a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you're listening to your podcast.